Hi, this is Abigail Benjamin for the Green Catholic. My city of Martinsburg, West Virginia was in the news recently because we were one of three West Virginia cities that were not in compliance with the EPA standards. And so our city water got all changed. And I just wanted to give out some facts to my area friends, and again, really encourage all the Catholic moms. I know you've got a lot of things on your plate, but it's really going to be important to do your research, to know how your water is being sourced, who to call in emergency. Are you going to get the notifications when something like this happens? And again, this was all kind of theoretical for me, but when the EPA changed the standards, I was really grateful that I had people to call, and I knew how the city hall process worked. And it's just this is the work that we can do to really protect our families. So this is a little bit of a science background for you, but even if you don't live in Martinsburg, I think it might come in handy. My city utility serves 17,000 of us that live in the city, and we got our water from two springs that actually are in our area. Most of the towns around us, like Shepherdstown and Charlestown, and many people on the way to Washington, D.C., are going to take their water from the Potomac River. And so when you are figuring out your water, you need to figure out if you're in the city or the county or private well, and you need to ask about the primary water source and if there's a secondary water source. So what happened to our town was that the EPA changed their guidelines. There's this chemical, and it's called POFA. It's also can be called a C8, and this chemical is used basically in the manufacture of Teflon. So I'm going to be non-scientific and call it the Teflon C8 chemical. It's man-made, it's synthetic. One of the problems, it being the Teflon chemical, is that it never really doesn't break down in the environment or in our bodies. So our lifelong exposure, it's important because it kind of just stays in our bodies. So the EPA had a standard of 0.4 parts per billion, and they dropped it down to 0.07 parts per billion. So my city had 0.124 was our highest reading. And so when it was 0.4, we were in compliance, but on Thursday at 2:30, the notice shifted to 0.07. And so obviously, going back to your elementary school math, 0.24 is greater than 0.07. So the city was in non-compliance, and they could have either shut down and not served water, or they elected to take this spring that was contaminated with this C8 chemical, and they just took it directly offline. So as in terms of the city water I'm getting from my tap right now, we're in compliance with EPA guidelines. And it is important to just, talk legality. My city was never not following the EPA. But I think it goes to the greater question, which is, in my house, what kind of water do I want to be drinking? What kind of water am I giving to my small children? And, this was a concern for me because I had two pregnancies in this house that we've lived in for 5 years. So I now know that myself and my small children in utero, and when they're being breastfed, they all got exposed to a level that we now know the EPA is considered unsafe. So the way I'm dealing with this is a kind of a three-prong approach. I'm really upping the filtration in my house. And I think that kind of all of us inside our own families need to decide what is the risk factor. And this is my personal decision. But when you are having young children in the house, I think you just need to go above what the EPA guidelines suggest, because we really need to be careful with our children and with ourselves. And so the first level for me is I have the cat joining me, is filtration. And then the second level is talking about this idea about public notice. I found out about this, 12 hours after it happened, even though, everybody in my town calls me kind of I guess, the water lady. But we really, as families, need to be sure that we're plugged into, a news source or a Facebook page or something where we're getting updated information, because this stuff with the water, it really, just the ordinary boil advisories, it is a critical need that we need to be watching carefully. And then I think the third prong approach is, it's really important to me that we protect the water. And one of the things that I was frustrated, even though the city, was being, very clear about their plans, it sort of was the short-term solution was just to let this water spring go. And I really want to help follow up and make sure we know why this water was contaminated. And if possible, if we can either remove the contaminant or treat the water with bigger carbon filters. And what I learned through doing the watershed movement is that we're all interconnected. The water that I have in cities of Martinsburg is the backup water source for people that are in Potomac River that also face contaminants. It's the backup source for the county, which is the second largest county in West Virginia. And so it's just this reminder too that what's happening in our backyard, it isn't just affecting us and our immediate neighbors. It's a much piece of a larger puzzle. And I am grateful for all the work that has been done for the past 15 years in Parkersburg, West Virginia. And I'm very eager to connect up with people from Parkersburg and find more information. And I just encourage us to really think about water as a global problem. And we just can't educate ourselves enough about this important human right. Thank you.